the worst experience this planet has had in over 100 years.
We were told a lie about a virus that was going to kill everybody.
Stay at home during this pandemic.
Halten Sie sich an die Regeln.
This is a pandemic.
An entire psychological operation happened around the world, making people afraid, when it was really a disease of the elderly and the comorbid.
As the virus spread its horrible infection.
So we were following a communist plan instead of common sense science. It's people that were draconian that took the opportunity to be iron-fisted dictators and practice medicine without a license.
Because Canadians got vaccinated.
If they had allowed natural immunity, very few people would have required this vaccine. The uptake would have been minuscule compared to the 100 billion they stand to make.
A vaccine would offer a way back to normalcy.
Thereafter, for younger kids,
normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
Getting everyone vaccinated.
We need to get as many people as possible vaccinated. We can reasonably quickly get to the herd immunity.
Where we have herd immunity. Putting the needle in people's arm.
Shot in every arm, shot in every arm. Well, who's making billions? The pharmaceutical company.
It raised its revenue outlook for the year.
It's one of the most successful years in our corporate history.
They don't have your health and wellness in mind. They have their shareholders' bottom interest in mind.
So you say young, healthy people should get vaccinated?
Absolutely.
They did something so obviously corrupt, and to know that it's all being run by pharma is really unsettling.
People were forced to get the shot in order to live life. That's pure evil. But coercion isn't science. That's bullying.
We're actually hacking the software of life.
In the first episode of this three-part documentary series, we shed light on what could potentially be one of the most tragic pharmaceutical disasters in human history. The use of these experimental COVID vaccines has resulted in a disastrous level of harm and mortality. We are hearing the tragic stories of individuals whose health was severely compromised after receiving mRNA vaccinations. In the second episode, we investigate whether these experimental vaccines were authorized without rigorous testing, relying on fraudulent safety studies.
There's a criminal component that needs to be investigated.
People need to hear that this trial data is corrupted.
They said, we need you to not talk about this with your friends.
In part 3, we revisit the pandemic, examining the injustices brought about by lockdowns.
No, you've arrested me for no reason!
You must stay at home.
And also the inhumane vaccine mandates. We give a voice to those whose lives have been devastated by these draconian measures, in the United States, Europe, China, and Australia.
You would be harassed by police, you would be questioned, you would be arrested, you would be restrained.
And the isolation and the quarantine options.
Part of the narrative that was given by the government was that we were all granny killers, that we were murdering people by not being vaccinated.
We also visited Sweden, a place that opted for no lockdowns and masks, but still did exceptionally well.
So the freedom not wearing a mask in Sweden was the best.
Joel Wallskog had a fulfilling career as a surgeon. Like so many others who suffered due to COVID vaccines, Joel had no choice but to abandon his career because of the severity of his vaccine injury.
I had a very busy practice. I specialized in joint replacement because of my extra training. It was a great practice. I saw about 6,000 patients in clinic every year, and I did about 800 to 900 surgical procedures per year. That's a very busy practice. So you took people that were in a lot of pain and functionally disabled from it, And you do a joint replacement like a hip or a knee replacement, and literally 6 weeks later, their life has dramatically changed. So it was very gratifying for me too. I enjoyed getting up every day, and I always told my kids, try to find something that you love, because almost every day I was excited about going to work. I went ahead and got my one and only Moderna injection. About 7 days later, I remember waking up from bed and telling my wife that my feet were numb. So maybe 1 week later, after my numbness started, I remember I was at work and I was sitting in a clinic room talking to a patient, and I tried to stand up, and literally my legs wouldn't go. There was just no reaction. My legs wouldn't help me stand. So I remember using my hands to push my body up, and as soon as I tried to stand, I fell. And just my legs gave out. And really it was at that time when I knew that there was something more serious or more ominous going on. Very quickly I got diagnosed with a condition called transverse myelitis. I realized that my condition was much more serious. And unfortunately I've never been back to work since. And that's now well over 2 years ago. I couldn't work. I went through probably every phase of grief. I certainly was in denial. I had a long period of being very angry. Unfortunately, my leg weakness, my leg numbness, my loss of stamina, my balance problems have never improved. I have about 2 to 4 hours on my legs a day, so I can get around most days okay for 2 to 4 hours. But after that, my legs are pretty much done for the day, and I spend a lot of time on my recliner in our family room where I can read and do things like that. Sometimes I get neuropathic or kind of bad pain flares. Sometimes the flares are so bad pain-wise or weakness-wise that I have to go on steroids, and the steroids usually can get me out of a flare. Also, since my injury, it's interesting that my blood pressure has been elevated, my heart rate's been elevated ever since my injury. Just about 2 or 3 months ago, I started passing out. So sometimes I could tell where I was getting a little dizzy, but about 2 months ago, I was sitting at our kitchen table, and my kids just said I started kind of speaking gibberish, then kind of keeled over and fell on the floor.
Science that can't be questioned is propaganda. And we took an oath in medicine to first do no harm. Where did that go?
Ryan Cole is an experienced pathologist with expertise in virology and immunology.
It's crazy to think that people that aren't doctors, aren't scientists, were pushing something that never worked, and there were billions spread around and shared amongst each other while people were dying because of an experimental shot. And now we have millions of people around the world that carry permanent harm for the rest of their lives, who are now paralyzed, who now have neurodegenerative disease, who now have severe autoimmune diseases, all for taking a product that was never going to work, never did work, and never will work.
Mass vaccinating children with these experimental products didn't reduce the spread, and it resulted in severe side effects for many children.
I'm going to count to 5, and if you're not out of bed, you are getting grounded.
At 12 years old, Maddie DeGarry received the Pfizer shot.
2, 3.
Upon receiving the second shot, Maddie immediately felt pain at the injection site.
The vaccine completely devastated her body. Once a healthy, active child, she now navigates the world from a wheelchair.
It started at the bottom, it started with tingling, and it kept moving up her body, and it got to the point where the tingling stopped, but she couldn't feel from her lower waist down. And at that point, she couldn't walk anymore. She literally couldn't move her legs.
Maddie. Hey, welcome back.
I need to take this out.
Okay.
Can we please take...
The COVID vaccination campaigns place significant emphasis on encouraging parents to vaccinate their children, with a particular focus on pregnant women and young mothers.
You know this vaccine.
I know.
For healthy children, do they need to be protected?
I think they need to be protected.
For healthy children, the risks associated with COVID-19 are similar to the seasonal flu. Despite this, COVID vaccines were heavily promoted for children.
I strongly encourage parents and their children to get vaccinated.
Millions of kids are about to get a COVID vaccination shot.
We personally have met a ton of kids that have had similar reactions to Maddie. There are a lot of kids that were killed. The ones that I know about that were killed were myocarditis.
The tragedy of previously healthy children dying following COVID vaccination is now all too common.
I decided to do the right thing and keep my son safe. This turned out to be the worst decision in my life. Suddenly my son was dead, and I was planning his funeral.
One such heartbreaking instance is that of Ernesto Ramirez Jr., who fell victim to myocarditis just 5 days after his COVID-19 vaccine. Now, his father is determined to spread this heartbreaking story as a cautionary tale.
I'm Ernest Ramirez. I'm the father of Ernesto Ramirez Jr. Excuse me. A single parent. I raised Junior since he was a baby. I took him to get the vaccine. 5 days later, I gave him some money. I gave him a hug and a kiss. Told him to be good. They called me if he needed anything. That was the last time I spoke to him. The government killed my baby. I have nothing else to live for.
Many people who receive these mRNA vaccines are now suffering from severe forms of autoimmune diseases, which can devastate the entire body, making pain a haunting companion in their lives.
I was in so much pain, and I really felt like if I was to move like this, that I was going to be paralyzed. I'm not able to work. That's it. I mean, I'm permanently disabled.
I had discovered that there were thousands and thousands of people whose symptoms mimicked mine and who were vaccine injured. And that, you know, that there's millions around the world suffering the same.
If there's anyone who's lost someone in their family to the jab, could they please stand up? If there's anyone in this room who's been personally injured by the vaccine, could they please stand up? Please keep standing. If you know anyone who has been injured by the jab, please stand up.
Paul Marik is recognized as one of the world's top specialists in pulmonary and critical care. Having authored over 500 peer-reviewed publications, he is established as one of the most published physicians in his field. Paul Marik delivers a powerful, alarming message about COVID-19 vaccines.
They were never safe nor effective. They've harmed countless millions of people. They've killed millions of people. And it's a crime against humanity. It should never have happened. And it's a tragedy that it was allowed to happen.
In the fight against the coronavirus, Western countries have vaccinated the majority of their population with novel mRNA vaccines. This is a highly experimental form of gene and nanotechnology.
There was never a vaccine made with mRNA.
This is just one unbelievable major experiment conducted on the human species.
Traditional vaccines use inactivated viruses, but these gene vaccines contain genetic material, which enters our cells and our body starts to generate parts of the coronavirus.
People historically have this confidence in the concept of, oh, it's just a vaccine. Well, no, it's not. It is a gene injection. And then they want to mandate these on people. Well, we have this new technology, everybody needs to get it.
Getting everyone vaccinated.
Billions of doses of these experimental genetic vaccines have been administered during the pandemic, leading companies like Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna to achieve record profits. CDC recommends these genetic COVID vaccines as part of the child and adolescent immunization schedule. Children might soon receive routine mRNA genetic vaccine injections for COVID-19, flu, and RSV.
Protection you can give your child right now.
And it's not a safe technology, but they're acting as though they've been given carte blanche to do this with anything going forward.
A unified front of esteemed scientists and doctors, renowned for their expertise, has worked tirelessly to raise awareness about the harms associated with these vaccines.
So I'll see the next slide before I go. Is the solution to get through the truth out to the public around these major issues. And again, we've got good quality observational data showing increase in heart attacks and cardiac arrest in people aged between 16 and 40, so younger people, which was associated with the vaccine and not with COVID. That's from Israel.
Having some of the brightest minds from around the world come together.
Get injured and then you sue your...
This is a group of highly competent professionals that are seeking to obtain answers.
Huge applause to Dr. Robert Malone.
Robert Malone, one of the inventors of this mRNA technology, issues a stark warning about mRNA vaccines.
They were neither safe nor effective. The evidence about the adverse events from the vaccines is unequivocal. It is absolutely overwhelming.
It's very likely that the mRNA vaccines accelerate coronary artery disease. Now, as a cardiologist, that's really, really bad, because what we've done is we have introduced into the population another risk factor for heart disease and heart attacks. That means we will see an increased prevalence of heart attacks and sudden cardiac death going on for years, and that's my biggest fear.
People who are taking this and they are experiencing side effects, what would you say to them and to us with families, with loved ones who have succumbed to the propaganda?
The failure to acknowledge your damage and gaslighting to deny you the ability to even speak about the harm that has occurred to you is wrong. Physical damage and medical consequences must be compensated.
These experts share a resolute message. The COVID vaccinations, particularly those utilizing mRNA technology, should be halted immediately. Moreover, they advocate for a thorough investigation.
These things need to stop being pushed and given today. Not one more shot should be delivered. I think I'm uniquely qualified to speak on what's been going on for the last years. I actually have degrees in applied mathematics, immunology, computational biology, biochemistry, and molecular biology.
As we sit here today, there's over 3,000 papers in the peer-reviewed literature that describe COVID-19 vaccine injuries, disabilities, and deaths.
Peter McCullough is a highly published physician in his field of cardiology, possessing exceptional knowledge and expertise that establishes him as a trusted authority in the medical community.
Prior to the pandemic, I had focused on the interface between heart and kidney disease. And in that domain, I was the most published person in the world in history and remain to that day. I've given grand rounds in every major institution in the United States, published extensively across all the major journals. I was the editor of 2 major journals. The COVID-19 vaccines cause myocarditis. They cause heart damage.
Heart attack deaths have become more common across all age groups.
I'm a cardiologist. Peer-reviewed studies have shown that myocarditis is fatal. It causes death. It will precipitate sudden death in sports or exercise or during sleep. That's proven.
Sudden death among healthy working age people worldwide is skyrocketing.
There has been an increased rise, a sharp rise in unexplained deaths during the pandemic, deaths that are not listed as COVID-related.
Cardiac arrest incidents are at the highest ever recorded in Victoria.
And we are seeing record cardiac arrests among athletes in Europe, the United States, and all over the world.
While the pandemic was ongoing, every COVID death was treated with the utmost importance.
Every death is tragic.
Even one life is precious.
Every single life matters, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic.
As we fast forward to 2023, in Europe, countries with high vaccination rates are still experiencing a disturbingly elevated death toll, while countries with lower vaccination rates are not experiencing as much ongoing excess mortality. The high number of deaths in younger age groups is gravely concerning.
Anytime a biopharmaceutical product remains on the market despite excess mortality and mounting evidence suggesting greater and greater deaths are accumulating with each and every day that the COVID-19 vaccines are left on the market, that does qualify as mass negligent homicide for all of those who are responsible for manufacturing the vaccines, distributing them, administering them, and then promoting them. Each and every person that ever encouraged, pressured, coerced, or threatened reprisal for one of these COVID-19 vaccines is complicit in a crime against humanity, and that crime is mass negligent homicide.
The promise was that these vaccines would put an end to all infections and stop the pandemic.
Vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
That the virus stops with every vaccinated person. The virus does not infect them.
If you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask.
In reality, these vaccines have been a catastrophic failure. Protection against infection and disease rapidly vanished, making breakthrough infections common among the vaccinated.
You can still get it if you're vaccinated. Countries like Iceland, very highly vaccinated country, but there's lots of breakthrough cases.
We're reading more about so-called breakthrough infections.
This very specific issue of breakthrough cases.
As a troubling number of breakthrough infections,
you could still pass on the virus to someone else.
Dr. Fauci says he has COVID again.
Now, most of the people in the world have been infected with COVID.
With mRNA vaccines, where we've seen a loss of protection after just 3 or 4 months. Just 3 or 4 months.
A case can be made that these products do not actually function as vaccines. They do not prevent death, and they do not prevent disease. All of those are clear.
So now we have these tragic figures that are all the people thinking we did the right thing, we did this, we beat COVID. Well, no, you didn't, because your shot didn't stop you from getting the virus. You carried as much or more virus and transmitted it, didn't stop you from transmitting it. Then you got the disease more times than those who naturally recover from the disease.
Vaccines didn't end the pandemic. Unfortunately, what happened is they didn't admit they're wrong, and yet they doubled down. Okay? They even pushed the vaccines harder.
Telling people they must have the vaccine.
And we know that mandates work. This is not about freedom or personal choice.
The divide that this vaccine mandate caused here in the state, where thousands had to choose over a shot or their livelihoods.
We've lost good people with good hearts who are doing good work.
Clear requirement of vaccination for anyone who works for the federal government.
Instead of removing these dangerous products from the market, they pushed for mandatory vaccinations and continuous booster shots.
How we can encourage and potentially think about mandatory vaccination within the European Union.
Die Devise lautet Impfen, Impfen, Impfen.
Everyone 12 or older on a plane or train within Canada should be fully vaccinated.
Enforcing vaccine passports.
If you're not vaccinated, you can't go to the movies, you can't go to a hotel, you can't go to restaurants. You pretty much can't have a social life outside of your house.
And for young people, they should think of vaccines as being liberating.
What we saw is continued oppression, restriction of travel, no jab, no job policies enacted across the world. None of these countries, none of these authorities, 1 second considered that the vaccines wouldn't work. They assumed the vaccines were effective, and they assumed they were essential for the pandemic, and what a mistake that was.
To make matters worse, the more boosters you get, the more vulnerable you are to contracting coronavirus. With each shot, there is a risk of vaccine injury and damage from constant infections. Yet they insisted that there was no risk in regularly boosting the human population every 6 months.
3 shots, and then every once in a while you have to reboost.
So every adult to get a booster.
New COVID booster.
Updated booster shot.
And get their booster.
To get boosted.
So are we just redefining what it means to be fully vaccinated?
That's
the head of Pfizer now telling us we might need one in a year, in the next year, in the next year.
How often will we be getting boosted? For the rest of our lives?
How many vaccinations do we need? It is necessary a 4th boost.
4th dose. The 4th dose.
5th COVID booster shot.
Even today, COVID booster shots are heavily marketed.
I mean, when does it end? I mean, how much money does pharma need to make? Fortunately, if you look at the current rate of the boosters, I mean, it's rapidly declined, so the word is getting out. People are starting to really not believe the whole safe and effective narrative.
And they're safe and they're highly effective.
That these are safe and effective.
Those 2 words haunt me to this day, and that's safe and effective. Which this vaccine was not safe for me, and it was not effective. In fact, it's not effective for anyone. And still to this day, newscasters will say, well, it's safe and effective, go get your booster, as these young children are falling on the football field.
Jessica Suda, a multi-talented artist, rose to stardom as a key member of the iconic Pussycat Dolls, one of the most successful girl bands of all time. Jessica has chosen to make her vaccine injury public, with the aim of raising awareness.
I really believe it is catastrophic, the amount of injury that have happened after this mRNA vaccine. I live it daily, and my whole life has changed. If it was up to me, I'd say halt the vaccines, now. I regret it every single day that I walked into my local pharmacy to get that shot in my arm. But the news got me when they said, hey, you're gonna have to protect your children. And I'm a new mother, and well, what are you gonna do? I want to protect my child. But as it turns out, it wouldn't have done anything to MJ, so Yeah. My body is not my body anymore. And as I sit in front of you right now, I'm in so much pain, I could just cry.
Jessica is dealing with an extreme form of autoimmune disease triggered by the mRNA vaccine.
I feel like my body is eating itself. Overall fatigue, joint pain all throughout my whole body. My eyelids felt very heavy. My body felt like 1,000 pounds. And during this, I lost about 50 pounds in 3 months. Like that. Honest to God, I feel like I just turned 41 and I feel like I'm 100. I never knew 41 would feel like 100. Yeah, it's devastating.
This condition has transformed a once healthy woman into someone who experiences excruciating pain every single day. She has endured a long list of severe physical and neurological symptoms.
Each month it just progressively got worse, where it spread through my whole entire rib cage, burning, stabbing, the most awful intense pain that no pain reliever can take away. Not even laying down, it made it worse. So life for me is just a painful existence every single day. Doing any physical activity, I pay for it at night, especially because I won't not pick up my son. I still want to be an active mother, but it is so difficult to do it. And I pay for it at night. At night is always the worst for me. I don't want anyone to go through what I'm going through. I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy. And the fact that they did this to kids, I just think it's really evil, because I can't imagine this happening to a young child. And from what I've seen from Ground Zero with other vax-injured people, their lives have been absolutely turned upside down and destroyed.
The warnings of these scientists and doctors have been suppressed. Instead of suspending these experimental gene vaccines, mRNA gene technology is becoming a regular part of our medicine. With the growing use of mRNA technology, we are routinely tapping into our body's gene machinery. The risks are substantial. Are we recklessly putting humanity at risk and gambling with the health of future generations? Is history replaying itself, thrusting us into a health catastrophe resembling those linked to toxic substances, such as lead, asbestos, and DDT?
Dusting with DDT was begun at once.
It is crucial for us to grasp what mRNA technology is all about. We'll explore its past, its future, and its role in causing COVID vaccine injuries. But first, let's understand that messenger RNA is not just some human-made creation, it's a naturally occurring marvel within our own bodies. Evolution has blessed our planet with the wonders of genetic coding, the very foundation of life. In this complex symphony of life, messenger mRNA plays a vital part. The magnificent diversity of life stems from humble beginnings, evolving over billions of years to attain its marvelous complexity. Every living organism, from the tiniest microbes to the mightiest mammals, shares a common ancestral heritage and a unique genetic code. The journey from primitive beings to complex creatures would not have been possible without the genetic blueprint called DNA. DNA is the orchestrator of life on Earth, governing our bodily functions, physical attributes, and even behavioral patterns. DNA carries the to-do list for each cell. Cells turn to their DNA to read the next tasks. These instructions are then copied from DNA into smaller snippets, called messenger RNA. So you can think of DNA as the blueprint, while messenger RNA is the project manager that makes things happen.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade.
In the 1960s, during the era of the space race and rapid scientific progress, groundbreaking revelations occurred in genetics, one of which was the discovery of messenger RNA. Scientists finally understood how DNA's information is read and transmitted, giving birth to the field of RNA science. The mRNA COVID-19 vaccines were hailed as a success, catapulting the widespread implementation of this novel mRNA technology.
mRNA technology. It's still new, and it seems like there are a lot of possibilities for where this could be used.
The lowest hanging fruit is other vaccines.
These pharmaceutical companies, now that they think that they're all important because they got to use this new technology, they're working on this technology, this lipid nanoparticle plus a gene sequence, for so many other viruses and infectious diseases now.
By helping to create the vaccines that really rescued us from the coronavirus. I'm here with Stefan Bancel, who is the CEO of Moderna. What's next?
So what we're working on is a lot of vaccines, around 30 plus vaccines today.
So it's such a success of mRNA technology. I think we will see a lot of advancements with mRNA. And the good thing, after the success of COVID, it is that right now we have a substantial wave of companies, biotechs and big pharmas that are working on mRNA. A lot.
And they want to do this, and they want people to think, see, we used it during COVID. Wasn't it great that we were able to warp speed it? No, it's not great. We, the actual scientists that look at all the data and look at the information, are looking at this horrendous train wreck on fire that they caused, and now they've got 50 more racing trains coming down the tracks because they think they have permission.
So, I mean, we have 48 drugs today in development.
48.
48 today. And there's 50 more in the labs cooking.
Somebody asked about the vaccine.
Throughout the pandemic, the leaders of the world have pushed the new mRNA vaccine platforms.
Indeed, mRNA vaccines will be central to the EU's preparedness plan for fighting COVID-19 and other viruses. A groundbreaking innovation. And this pioneering technology could be the backbone of our future vaccine portfolio.
So will have a significant impact in the research that they're doing on a range of illnesses. We talked about Alzheimer's, we talked about cancers, we talk about the range of things that messenger RNA is able to deliver.
Clearly, it's perceived that there is a gold mine, a huge amount of potential profit to be made with this new technology and its application for a variety of different indications. There are over 200 different clinical trials currently planned for mRNA-based technology, and over 40 trials are currently enrolling. It's hard for me to understand why research boards, oversight boards, would allow these studies to proceed. I can only hope that the patients enrolling in these studies have much better informed consent than the general population has been provided with the COVID-19 vaccines.
Humanity must understand that we have entered an era where conventional drugs are being replaced with gene therapy products. Instead of taking a pill, an injection can force your cells to produce the medication within your body. The widespread use of COVID gene vaccines represents one of the most significant turning points in modern medicine. This medical revolution is occurring without proper debate and informed consent. During the pandemic, over 1 billion individuals received mRNA gene vaccines, accelerating the normalization of gene therapy products. Stefan Ulrich, an executive at the pharmaceutical giant Bayer, believes mRNA vaccines have made humanity more open to gene and cell therapy.
Therefore, I'm very interested to hear what Stefan has to tell us.
The mRNA vaccines are an example for that cell and gene therapy. I always like to say, if we had surveyed 2 years ago in the public, would you be willing to take gene or cell therapy and inject it into your body, we would have probably had a 95% refusal rate. I think this pandemic has also opened many people's eyes to innovation.
The mRNA technology is a very powerful technology.
We are handing over the keys of life to these big pharmaceutical companies. They are given permission to tamper with a highly complex system that has evolved over the span of billions of years.
This is a piece of string, a strand. Doesn't seem like much, unless it's a strand of mRNA, the code of life inside every cell of your body. Then it has the power to change everything. Moderna, this changes everything.
mRNA technology has indeed seen significant commercialization, with companies like Moderna at the forefront.
Are companies like Moderna. This is a revolutionary biotech firm that's creating a whole new class of medicines based on messenger RNA, the software of life. Well, it's almost science fiction what you're up to.
It's like software. It's a software of life.
Moderna secured billions in investment and became one of the most praised biotech companies.
We could change the course of medicine forever.
Moderna mRNA COVID vaccines were one of the most used in the world. Moderna's leaders take pride in their ability to hack the biology of life.
That we're actually hacking the software of life, and that it's changing the way we think about prevention and treatment of disease. That we're actually hacking the software of life. And so we think of it like an operating system.
There is a similar nature between the code of software and the code of life.
Unlike computer code, mistakes in human biology can be irreversible, leaving no room for trial and error. The Moderna shot brought about a catastrophic change in the health of Toby, a 37-year-old mother to 2 sons.
It was very hard for my husband to watch me suffer the way I did, and my children didn't know what was going on. You know, I didn't know if I was going to live till the next day, and I had to have these hard conversations with my children. You know that I don't know if mommy's going to make it. And so it was very hard. There was a lot of inconsolable nights because I didn't know what my future held. My husband, he just felt so helpless. I was afraid to fall asleep at night because I didn't know if I was going to wake up. That was a very painful time for me. My whole life had changed, and I was just this shell existing because I wanted to live, but I had no quality of life.
Toby grapples with vaccine-related injuries that manifest in cardiovascular problems, including severe chest pain, a rapid heart rate, and shortness of breath. The array of neurological symptoms Toby has experienced is truly horrific.
I started suffering with severe vertigo. I felt like there was electric raindrops dropping on my skin. I had burning sensations in my brain. I was having audible hallucinations. I was suffering from aura migraines, tremors, internal vibrations, excruciating leg pains. My veins were bulging and burning. I developed POTS. I had lost an extreme amount of weight. I was extremely thirsty all the time. I have extreme joint pain, muscle atrophy. The list is endless. Some things have gotten better, but new things are always evolving.
Toby's relentless search for a cure has been challenging, marked by difficulties in finding specialists who take her condition seriously. The financial toll of her vaccine injury has been exceptionally high.
When I became injured, I had to take a leave of absence because it rendered me non-functional. So then my husband had to bear the weight of our expenses. My injury has cost us over $70,000, and I don't even know if I can fully heal, or, it's definitely put me in the right direction, but it's landed us in financial ruins, and to where our credit's been ruined. We had to take out major loans, and now we're filing for bankruptcy. So it's completely devastated us.
The creation of mRNA vaccines has moved beyond the traditional method of growing real viruses in a lab.
Specially selected fertile eggs.
These gene vaccines only require the genetic code of the coronavirus. In the early stages of the pandemic, Chinese scientists released the genetic code of the coronavirus, sparking a global race to develop a vaccine.
Soon as we get that sequence, let's plug it into mRNA. That's all I needed was the sequence.
They used the genetic code, provided by Chinese scientists, as a backbone for their mRNA vaccine. The genetic code in the vaccine instructs our bodies to produce only specific parts of the coronavirus, rather than the entire virus itself.
Vaccine platforms are using what's called the spike protein of the coronavirus.
The spike proteins are the tiny spikes on the surface of the virus. Once this mRNA code is injected into your body, it instructs your cells to make these coronavirus spikes. By creating these spikes in our body, our immune system should build immunity against this specific part of the virus.
The worst mistake of all would be to take messenger RNA and then have it code for a lethal protein that was engineered in a Chinese biosecurity lab. That was a disaster.
The mRNA technology is exceptionally complicated and unlike anything we have seen with standard vaccines.
When people received their first COVID-19 vaccine, it was the first time their body received lipid nanoparticles.
The mRNA vaccine dose is filled with tiny bubbles of fat called lipid nanoparticles. These fat bubbles contain the instructions in the form of mRNA. Once the nanoparticle gets inside the cell, it hijacks the cell and instructs the cell to produce the spike protein.
The lipid nanoparticles, when they attach to cells, then the lipid nanoparticles dump off their payload, messenger RNA. The messenger RNA then is taken into the cytoplasm of the cell. It's read by ribosomes over and over and over again. The spike protein, which is a foreign protein, is expressed on the surface of cells.
With every dose, a large number of these spike proteins are created inside your body. The injection of mRNA vaccines turns our bodies into spike protein manufacturing sites. The decision to generate spike protein in the body has proven to be a fatal mistake. We were assured that the spike protein created by the vaccine, was harmless. But nothing could be further from the truth.
The code that they used is for the spike protein. Early on in the pandemic, we learned that the spike protein is the toxic part of this virus that causes clotting, that causes inflammation, that causes myocarditis, that causes brain fog.
The spike protein directly causes blood clotting and is found in the middle of large blood clots.
The mRNA vaccines turn our immune system against our own body, and our tissues can sustain serious damage.
And any cell that makes this foreign protein now becomes a target of your own immune cells to attack as well.
Those cells will be attacked immunologically, as if they're infected with the virus.
The immune system detects the presence of spikes and initiates the destruction of the infected cells. These cells become a target for our immune system to hunt and kill.
It immediately evokes an autoimmune reaction in each and every cell that is expressed. And then cell on cell attack occurred. So autoimmunity occurs in every single person who took the vaccine.
In most coronavirus infections, the virus tends to remain localized in the airways and lungs. With intramuscular injection, these lipids enter the bloodstream and spread throughout the body. This widespread distribution leads to the production of toxic spike protein in various organs, such as the brain, ovaries, and liver. These regions of the body can have severe damage, potentially leading to fatal consequences. These particles have been designed in a way that they effortlessly infiltrate almost any cell they come into contact with. So not only the cells in your shoulder muscle can be turned into spike production sites, but also the heart muscles and all your organs. This makes the technology extremely hazardous. Health officials are still reluctant to acknowledge the fact that these hazardous particles will indeed be distributed throughout the body, causing chaos and wreaking havoc wherever they reach.
Lipid nanoparticles go everywhere in the body, as in everywhere. To the brain, to the bone marrow, to the liver, to the spleen, most importantly to the reproductive organs, to the testes, to the ovaries. So lipid nanoparticles can't be controlled.
COVID shots are still an experimental product. We never use it in children. We never use experimental products in pregnant women. In this situation, we've done both. And we don't know what's going to happen to these children long term after the shot. If you look at some of the studies, where does the vaccine, where does the spike protein like to go to? To women's ovaries, to men's testes? And how is it going to affect their future fertility, their ability to have children? The answer is we don't know. There is no long-term safety data.
It was actually known before it was deployed in humans, based on rodent models, that these products went all over the body, and yet they persisted to continue to deploy them.
The health agencies gave approval to the mRNA technology, while being aware that these dangerous particles can travel to different organs. Years before the COVID pandemic, the scientific literature had well-documented research that nanolipids will distribute all around the body.
In a Chinese paper in 2018, there's actually a figure showing where lipid nanoparticles go in the body. So our vaccine developers, that is the contractors who claim that they have contributed to the development of this technology, they knew it ahead of time. They knew this was going to be a disaster.
pathologist Arnie Burkhardt, and his colleagues have shocking evidence on the dangers of mRNA vaccines.
And the destruction of the endothelium may be
Arnie Burkhardt has examined more than 100 biopsies from individuals who passed away shortly after vaccination.
Our findings are so alarming that the vaccination should be stopped immediately, and especially the vaccination of children.
These biopsies are like a crime scene, revealing the vaccine's potential to cause fatal damage to organs and tissues. When these tiny fat particles enter the bloodstream, they get into blood vessels, triggering blood vessels to produce this harmful spike protein. As the body eliminates these infected tissues, our vascular system, especially the heart, may suffer severe damage, which may lead to heart attacks or even death.
Actually, we found spike protein in many organs and many tissues. Spike protein was in the endothelium and in the vessels, in the vessel walls.
Justin experienced life-altering side effects from the Moderna mRNA vaccine.
Right when I had got it, my face went numb. I had a metallic taste in my mouth. I felt like I was going to pass out. Sent me to the hospital right away. Really kickstarted all these neuropathy issues, the tachycardia, bradycardia.
This young man now grapples with serious heart problems, nerve pain, joint inflammation, and brain fog, leaving him burdened with a mysterious autoimmune disease.
I am a musician. I've been playing guitar for around 15 years. It's definitely my greatest passion in my life. Music, I can't even put into words how much it means to me. It's that huge core part of what defines me has been stripped away. So that's what's, with these vaccine injuries, it's not just, paresthesias, the neuropathy pains, the chest pains, it's all the stuff that we've lost of our former life as well. So for me, music is a really big one.
Justin's intense and agonizing joint inflammation forced him to abandon his greatest passion in life.
I've developed tendinitis in my right arm. It's slowly developing my left arm. And I used to be able to play 8 hours a day if I wanted, and it just felt so good to release into playing music. And, like I said, now it's been 8 months and I've got a couple, 9 or 10 hours in or something of playing.
The vaccines are safe and effective, and they're safe.
It's safe, it's the right thing to do.
Like billions of others, Justin was led to believe that the likelihood of adverse events from the COVID vaccines was almost non-existent.
When I went into the pharmacy to get that, I asked what are the potential complications of this, and it's just 1 in a million. There's nothing to worry about. Some people are getting myocarditis and it resolves.
While seeking a diagnosis for his condition, Justin underwent numerous examinations and tests. One test result kept coming back false positive for 3 months.
She gives me a call and she says, "Hey, are you sitting down?" And I'm like, okay, I've never got one of these calls from my doctor before. Like, what's going on? And so she says, you have HIV. Before it showed ultimately that it was negative, I ended up testing false positive for HIV 6 times over 103 days. And my infectious disease doctor says this is from the Moderna shot. And he had told me I'm seeing a lot more other, I think he said him personally had 12 to 15 patients with false HIV because of the vaccine. It put me in a really dark place. To use a lighter phrase, I was kind of in the place where I was like, I might off myself. You know, like this was pretty heavy on top of these symptoms, and just what's the rest of my life going to be because of this vaccine injury and then now having this.
The dangerous nature of mRNA technology has been well known for a long time. For several decades, the mRNA technology has grappled with significant safety issues. Experiments with messenger RNA have been known to trigger nasty side effects, and the sight of these side effects was often horrific. Lab animals suffering, dangerous inflammation, and even death. Robert Malone and his colleagues conducted groundbreaking experiments that propelled the mRNA industry forward. Malone's team successfully tackled some of the major challenges associated with mRNA technology. In 1990, Robert Malone and his colleagues conducted yet another landmark experiment that is often cited as a pivotal moment in the history of mRNA.
At that time, I had a series of discoveries that led to 9 issued patents, which are the foundation technology for mRNA vaccines as well as DNA vaccination.
Despite notable advancements by brilliant scientists, safety concerns continued to haunt the biotech industry. A safe mRNA therapeutic remained a distant dream, as the technology faced setbacks in safety studies.
Again and again and again, those trials failed. The industry has been plagued with the problem that these formulations are toxic. Now, there had been improvements in the technology, or alterations at least, since I had abandoned the field in the late 1990s because of the inflammation and toxicity of the formulations. And I had tested many, many different cationic lipids and different formulation conditions, and no one could overcome the toxicity.
In 2005, researchers Katalin Karikó and Drew Weissman found a way to modify mRNA so that it becomes nearly invisible to our body's immune defenses. This synthetic mRNA acts like a stealth bomber, evading detection by our immune system. While this innovation made certain aspects of mRNA technology safer, it also introduced new risks. This synthetic mRNA makes the vaccine up to 1,000 times more powerful and highly durable, making it more challenging for our bodies to eliminate it.
They intentionally made messenger RNA completely synthetic for Pfizer and Moderna. This increased the efficiency to the maximum and made it nearly completely resistant to breakdown.
The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines use synthetic mRNA, causing concerns that the vaccine might be too strong and long-lasting, potentially leading our bodies to produce parts of the coronavirus for weeks or even months.
Ladies and gentlemen, so this year's Nobel Prize recognizes their basic science discovery.
The scientists who pioneered the synthetic mRNA were awarded the Nobel Prize.
As long as they're following the orders, they're exempt from liability under PrEP Act clause.
Yeah, so my background is in pharmaceutical research and development. So I worked in pharma industry for 25 years, and I retired. I sold my companies. I had clinical research organizations where I was doing contract work, clinical trials for pharma companies.
Sasha Latipova, a veteran in the pharmaceutical industry, has witnessed the decades-long struggles of safety concerns associated with mRNA technology.
It was in development for a long time, but the bad news was that it never reached the market. All of this time was spent in R&D studies, which all failed. And they all failed for safety.
There have been instances where mRNA studies have resulted in serious disasters.
There were 8 men that they dosed at the same time. 2 of them died right away, and the rest were severely injured. I don't know if they've survived. And that was a huge scandal in the industry, huge. We've never had anything like this. I was involved in early human testing on the safety side, and we've never heard of anything like this, any huge problem like this.
Just 3 years before the pandemic, the mRNA industry was still grappling with the long-standing issue of toxic nanolipids. Stat News, a respected scientific journal, conducted multiple investigative articles on the obstacles faced by Moderna. These articles shed light on the potential dangers associated with routine injections of these particles. Not even the industry leader, Moderna, could ensure the safety of mRNA technology for human use. Moderna was developing an mRNA treatment for a rare disease that required frequent mRNA injections. In 2017, the drug failed safety tests due to the dangerous side effects caused by these harmful nanolipids. Even Bill Gates, a vocal advocate for mRNA technology, was hesitant about the maturity of mRNA vaccines in 2017. This was just 3 years before the pandemic struck.
RNA area. Could you talk us through where we're at, how optimistic you are?
Well, there's no licensed product using these technologies, so they're still, in terms of immunogenicity, duration, some questions to be answered. There's early animal data that shows real promise.
Does this sound reassuring to you? The technology was still considered highly experimental in 2017. All they had was early animal data and a very limited number of experiments with humans. Just 2 months before the Wuhan pandemic, BARDA director Rick Bright predicted a major illness outbreak in China. The ideal solution for this hypothetical pandemic was an mRNA vaccine.
And it's fascinating, if you go back to the year 2019, Fauci and Rick Bright were at a meeting called the Milken Institute, and they were complaining and bemoaning, oh gosh, it just takes too long to get traditional vaccines to the market.
That alone, if it works perfectly, is going to take a decade.
But if we had a pandemic, wink wink, we could emergency authorize this new mRNA technology.
But it is not too crazy to think that an outbreak of a novel avian virus could occur in China somewhere. We could get the RNA sequence from that, beam it to a number of regional centers, if not local, if not even in your home at some point, and print those vaccines on a patch and self-administer.
That is a global pandemic, the likes of which we haven't seen in 100 years.
2 months later, as predicted by Bright, the pandemic hit Wuhan.
These were days of darkness, with no hope in the horizon.
The pandemic sparked a race for a COVID vaccine.
We've never created a new vaccine in less than 5 years, so this is urgent. It's going to have to go to 7 billion people.
I mean, you're talking about a global vaccination program without a vaccine that hasn't been fully developed yet.
mRNA vaccines took the spotlight as the leading candidate for a COVID vaccine. mRNA advocates began pushing this experimental vaccine technology.
One final way that's new and is promising is called the RNA vaccine. With RNA and DNA.
They ignored the fact that even the most resourceful biotech companies couldn't produce a safe and working mRNA vaccine before. No approved mRNA vaccine existed. A global marketing campaign was launched to convince the world and its leaders that this futuristic technology is the safest and quickest way to develop a COVID vaccine.
Also tonight, the FDA is fast-tracking a possible coronavirus vaccine being developed by drug maker Moderna.
Just as mRNA advocates hoped, the pandemic hastened the approval of mRNA vaccines.
Today, we're meeting with the pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies, the biggest in the world.
The President will be asking you, how can we make it faster?
We were able to go so fast because we were working for many years with the NIH, and we had worked with Dr. Fauci's team.
What is your timing then? What would you say?
So we're hoping to get the phase 1 start very soon now. We're just waiting for a green light.
Get it done. We need it. We want it fast. Okay? It's called Operation Warp Speed. That means big and it means fast. manufacture and deliver a vaccine in record time, and that's what it is, in record time.
We're really rushing through this vaccine development process.
That there is heightened skepticism surrounding fast-tracked vaccines.
So we aren't doing it like a long-term vaccine thing.
It was unheard of. It seemed impossible only a few years ago.
The fastest successful vaccine trial of all time.
Within less than a year,
scientists have created this in such a quick, miraculous time.
The first 2 vaccines against the novel coronavirus could be administered to Americans before Christmas.
How do we know if these vaccines are working?
The norm is that in order to perform all the usual steps, it takes about a decade, about 10 years, and well over $1 billion to bring a vaccine to market. But the decision was made that there was not sufficient time, and so it would be acceptable to just bypass all of these steps, or most of them.
That it may be that there needs to be some compromise in some of the safety measures that would normally be expected to create a vaccine, because time is so crucial.
Well, of course, if you want to wait and see if a side effect shows up 2 years later, that takes 2 years. So.
Pfizer could soon take a critical role in the COVID-19 battle. The company announced today the start of a trial for a potential COVID-19 vaccine.
The COVID vaccine trials were the ultimate test for mRNA technology. Was this gene therapy technology truly ready to be deployed to billions? The vaccine trials provided an opportunity to demonstrate that they had finally solved the long-standing toxicity problems. Because these COVID vaccines are gene therapy products, they should have studied whether these vaccines altered genes, caused cancer, or posed long-term risks. Instead of conducting proper safety testing, they found ways to avoid most of these safety checks.
And it should have gone through gene injection protocols. You have to look at dose dependency. You have to look at long-term potential harms, autoimmune diseases, etc. And there's a whole long list. Was any of this done? No. All the rules were thrown out.
Regulators treated these gene vaccines as regular vaccines, not as gene therapy products. This allowed them to skip most of the crucial safety checks.
These vaccines were tested using a vaccine checklist, but not a gene therapy checklist. There was a strong effort to deny that this was gene therapy technology, because if it was acknowledged that it was gene therapy technology used for vaccination purposes, then a whole different set of regulatory tests would have had to have been performed.
Moderna has openly stated in their company report that mRNA is considered a gene therapy product by the FDA. So the entire world received an injection of a gene therapy product that wasn't thoroughly studied, and it was rolled out at an unprecedented pace.
Plug it into mRNA. We were already collaborating with Moderna with mRNA, and let's do it. And it was rocket speed.
And that's incredible speed that you were already there.
And to be able to get a vaccine from the time you get the sequence of the virus to get a successful, highly effective and safe vaccine in the arms of individuals within 11 months has never even been imagined, much less done.
It is a great moment for us, and it's a great moment for all the thousands of people working here. They feel very excited about your visit, and they are looking forward to demonstrate their work.
We're dealing with completely new mRNA vaccines, never manufactured at scale before.
No pharma company in the world had ever mass-produced these gene vaccines. Now, they had an absurdly short time frame to set up the production line for billions of doses of a highly complex vaccine. There is a lot that can go wrong during the vaccine production process. A faulty jab could cause serious harm. As we have learned, the quality of the production of these vaccines varies widely. Some vaccine batches are highly dangerous, while others seem to have minimal side effects.
It's fascinating that on the mRNA technologies, Moderna had never safely brought a product to market ever before.
But that same company has never brought an approved vaccine to market.
It's never produced a commercial product before.
That's why so many people are pinning their hopes on this unproven technology.
So why in the world were we allowing companies with no experience in the vaccine realms to produce a product that was experimental to be used around the world?
If people know Pfizer, they probably know it for drugs like Lipitor and Viagra, not for cutting-edge vaccines developed in a public health crisis.
Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, admitted, he said, he went to a scientist and said, why are we using mRNA technology? We've only been researching this for 2.5 years. And they just turned around and said to him, it's because it's what we're doing. Well, who knows who puppeteered that as well? I have no idea.
They came and suggested to me mRNA, and it was very counterintuitive, the decision. I told them, are you sure? If you do that, this is not going to be only the first COVID vaccine, that will be the first vaccine ever. And they felt strongly about it. And I had to play.
This is a technology that may have held promise at some point in time if the problems could have been solved. It may have been destroyed. Its positive potential may have been completely damaged by this crazy rush to deploy it globally before it was ready.
The majority of doctors hold a strong belief that the possibility of a vaccine injury is almost non-existent. This bias among the medical community leaves sufferers without proper diagnosis and treatment.
I've been to over 15 specialists, and most of them have gaslit me, have dismissed me. My PCP dropped me. 2 hematologists would refuse to investigate further. It took me over a year to finally find a PCP that would listen to me and that heard me.
There's people in the community that are committing suicide because we don't have enough help, you know? We all did this because we thought we were doing the right thing, and we thought that it would stop COVID and reduce transmission, and now we're, you know, struggling to survive and don't have the finances to live.
We're just kind of like the forgotten ones. Even at the doctor's office, they gaslight you and tell you that you're crazy, you know? So for me, it was very important to speak to the injured, to let them know that they're not alone and it's happening.
If you have an adverse event or your child has an adverse event, you are on your own. From a compensation standpoint, you're literally hosed. The regulatory agencies and the pharma companies are completely immune to prosecution. So we can't sue them and try to get financial recourse after our injuries. And it's wrong, it's evil. These people are abandoned. Okay, when I talk about being abandoned, I mean many people are devastated from the standpoint of their finances, they're physically devastated, and they're often emotionally devastated.
So what does the FDA do?
Paul Merrick and Pierre Corey are the leaders of the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance, a group comprised of highly published and world-renowned thought leaders. They have developed treatments for COVID-19 that have saved countless lives.
The team we have are truly outstanding people who absolutely committed to what we're doing. They work wonderfully together. They really are, it's like a family, you know, these are my family.
All right, spike protein. Obviously the conference is around spike protein disease.
These physicians are tirelessly dedicated to researching and developing protocols for treating long-term COVID and COVID vaccine injuries.
clearly there are people out there suffering, and they're often desperate. The focus of this conference is on spike-related disease, which is mainly, vaccine injured. And the people here are really, their mission is to help those that are less fortunate and those that have suffered.
I also want to thank Brad Dressen, who's my co-chair of RAC 19.
This is a time when we all can share our individual experiences with regards to COVID and those injured by the COVID shots, and be able to collaborate and try to hopefully move forward to develop better diagnostics and treatments.
It's really hard to understand this unless you're living it. This experience has been the most isolating experience of my life. So I can't wait to be around my fellow vaxxed injured.
How you doing, Mom?
But also the doctors at the frontline COVID critical care, because they have been tremendous. Dr. Merrick has been an angel within the community.
I think our goal is to educate, to empower people. And
are you going to succeed in this goal?
Of course. I mean, there's absolutely no way we can fail. I think, we've come this far. You can just see the affection and kindness of the people that are here today. This is part of a community, and I hope this community will grow bigger and bigger to the extent that we will be able to persuade other people to see the truth and to see the light, because that's what we stand for.
And the truth should prevail at all costs. And the sacrifices we continue to make to get the truth out there will continue. And so I would encourage people, wake up.
The truth is the most sensational thing that you could ever report. It's always going to be what people want to hear.
We must continue to speak our truth.
We fight evil through love. What we're about at React 19 is really spreading love and caring for our fellow human beings. And I really think in the end, that's the story that will defeat the evil that we're up against.
Join us in spreading awareness. Let's make sure this information reaches as many people as possible. If you're experiencing COVID vaccine injuries, connect with frontline doctors at COVID-19criticalcare.com and the Vaccine Injured Support Group at react19.org.